Hello everyone and welcome back. In this series of videos we are going to delve deeper into the role of a marksman in the Summoner's Rift. We'll learn about the meta and who you might want to play to increase your rank before the season ends. And we'll also take a look at the laning phase, positioning and also the item builds. Just a few patches ago, marksmen were pretty much removed from the League of Legends. Back then, their nerfed carcasses were actively being replaced by the guys like Vladimir or Swain, bringing the actual extinction even closer. But after a couple of changes, marksmen are finally back. So let's see who they are and how you play them. But first of all, let's find out why marksmen were being replaced by other champions a while ago. And by other champions we mean the mages like Swain or Vladimir, and also bruisers like Yasuo. The thing is, in patch 8.11, critical strike chance items received a huge nerf, as well as some of the marksmen who had their basic stats decreased, that is armor, health, damage and health per level. Since every professional player really wants to play the strongest champion they have available, they quickly came up with an option to pick the champions with far stronger laning phase on bot lane, that is, those who have better basic stats, and were able to reach their primary power spikes faster. It all looked quite grim for the marksmen and their era, and the players all around the world were already starting to learn to play other champions, which turned the professional League of Legends and the high-tier solo queue into chaos. But a couple of patches later, Riot Games put everything back in its usual place, and now the non-marksmen are just as much of a rarity as they used to be. But which marksmen are currently in the meta and why? One of the strongest marksmen at the moment is Kai'Sa. She's got a very good pick and win rates in solo queue all over the world, and she's also pretty much the most pickable champion of the current World Championship. But what does she bring to the table? She's a marksman with a huge mobility and other tools for keeping herself alive, those being her E and her ultimate. A huge amount of damage against any kind of target, all thanks to her passive and Guinsoo's Rageblade combo. Potential for quick map objective kills. And finally, some pretty quick and strong power spikes due to her basic item build, which allows her and her team to keep fighting a lot more frequently. Another marksman who is just as good as Kai'Sa is Tristana. She's one of the strong late-game Goliaths, capable of utterly annihilating the enemy team later on, using her superior attack range, her critical strike chance and her mobility. So what makes her so lovable by the professionals? Note that she is currently the strongest marksman pick you can make for solo queue. Firstly, she's got a very good self-peeling capability, as she can use her W and R abilities to get out of the troublesome situations. Secondly, she's very good at taking down the enemy towers, thanks to her Respell Bomb. Thirdly, she deals a lot of burst damage, which allows her to make good use of such lane compositions as Thresh Tristana and Alistar Tristana. And finally, she is one of the best hyper carries in late game. That is due to her high attack range and her ability to position herself with her W. All in all, we've got a lot of strong points, usable in both solo queue and out on the professional scene. Varus has been a part of the marksman meta for quite a long time now, all because of how strong he becomes at level 6. Having two very powerful spells as his Q and E, Varus can leave most of the other marksmen without any chance of success. So let's see what exactly makes him so fearsome. Firstly, an exceptional laning phase, thanks to his high auto-attack damage and his long-range spells. Secondly, a long and easy-to-hit crowd control source as his ultimate, which allows him to start teamfights whenever he and his team want to. Thirdly, thanks to the passive of his W, he is one of the best tank destroyers in the game. And finally, he's got very quick and strong item build power spikes, as he uses Blade of the Ruined King and Guinsoo's Rageblade as his core items. Generally speaking, Varus is mostly popular for his strong laning phase, but his late game can be just as successful. With the right items and proper positioning, Varus is capable of destroying the entire enemy team all by himself. So these three were the main marksmen at the current moment. But let's not forget about the other, less frequent guests of this category. Those are the champions like Xayah, who, when combined with Rakan, can easily dominate the bottom lane together. Then there is Jhin, who can be a real threat for any low health target, and also Lucian, being the quickest and the most charismatic, as well as the most self-sufficient marksman in the game. Other marksmen aren't nearly as popular, but the World Championship is about to begin, so maybe, just maybe, we'll see the new and interesting strategies carried out by the best players in the world. Everyone knows that the marksmen grow in strength and the amount of impact they can make when they build their items, which means that their laning phases are lacking in terms of damage. The most important thing for any marksman is without a doubt their farming, so any successful marksman champion should be able to do that comfortably. When you are only starting, you can try to practice in a custom match. If you really want to succeed as a marksman, that will be a first step towards improving. Create a match and practice for about half an hour a day. Yep, that can be boring, but there is no way around it. Practice indeed makes perfect. Now, there is one more important thing any marksman player needs to learn. That is proper lane positioning, which is very important for making the most out of your champion. So let's take a look at the zones we've just highlighted. Note that these are true for the blue side, so the red side marksman will have it all in reverse. Anyways, there are 3 positions of power bot lane matchups can have. You can be stronger than your opponent, you can be equally strong, that is, you have a skill matchup, or you're obviously weaker than them and will lose most of the trades you'll try to start. So what do you actually have to do to come out of all the 3 situations with the highest chance of success? Let's find out. First of all, let's take a look at the match where the player has a weaker bot lane composition than the enemy. This will be Kai'Sa and Thresh against Braum and Lucian. In this case, it should be obvious that the enemy side will have an upper hand in pretty much any of the laning phase trades, which is why Kai'Sa will have to keep the lane in a way to farm her gold and experience, and also avoid the trades for as much as she can. She will have to hold her lane in the first position, which decreases her chance of getting killed by the enemy jungler, unless they decide to dive underneath the tower. This position also increases the chances of her own jungler killing the enemy bot lane. Furthermore, the proximity of her own tower puts the enemy duo in a very tough spot, where each of their mistakes can become their last, as the tower hits are unforgiving. Now, even matchups are easier to handle. If you are sure that your trading game is just as good as your enemy's, try to keep the minions closer to the middle of the lane and try to punish your opponent for every attempt at last hitting, which is pretty much the basic trading mechanic for the laning phase. But remember that in this lane setup your mistakes might lead to death, as the positions of all 4 players are all the same. Now, what do you do when your composition is stronger than your opponent? For example, you have Morgana and Caitlyn against Braum and Ezreal. This is where the most difficult to execute but the most effective lane position comes into play. It's number 3, which allows you to attack the enemy tower, deal damage to the enemy champions as they try to grab at least some of the farm, and also lets you have full control over the bottom side of the river, for which your jungler will be more than grateful. But do not forget that this position opens your back to the enemy jungler and their ganks, so be careful. Now, it all sounds pretty good, but now we have the most difficult part to handle. How do you even control the minions? It will take a long time to master, and every marksman has their own path of mastering this skill. But the basic principle is the damage you deal to the enemy melee and ranged champions. In other words, you need to push the lane in a specific way, to have the minions meet up in a spot you want them to meet up. Well, that be it for the first part of our marksmanship lesson. In the next part, we are going to discuss the teamfight positioning, and we'll also take a look at the item builds, so go ahead and watch it right now. Until then, as always, thank you so much for watching this video, and of course good luck in your solo queue.